Boom. Lesson number 80, page 331. Direct variation is a ratio, inverse variation is a ratio. So what we're going to do here is we're going to look at direct variation as a ratio, two different ways to solve these, and then we're going to go to inverse and do two different ways of solving these. Now, both ways work. You just have to pick which way you prefer. And one of the things that helps is by having two ways is, let's say you forget one way, but you remember the other way, you can still get the right answer. Okay, so if you remember right, as far as direct variation, we have a variable equals a constant times another variable. Remember that from an old lesson? And when we had inverse, it looked like this. Okay, so we had x equals k times y, and inverse meant we divide by y, but the k was on the top in both equations. All right, so I'm going to erase the one on the right here for right now. We'll do those later, and let's stick with the direct variation. So this has to do with ratios. So that's why there's a little bit of a tweak in here as far as how these are done. All right, so let's look at example 80.1 on page 331. It says A varies directly as B. Remember, when you say A varies directly as B, it's A equals KB. Okay, in the same order in the equation as it appears in the story problem. Okay, so I know that my A is going to be on the left and my B is going to be on the right. So it says A varies directly as B. If A is 50, when B is 5, what is the value of A when B is 7? Okay, so in past lessons, what did you do first to solve this? You found
The X or the K.
yeah, we found the K first. All right, in that first phrase, it gives us what our A and B are. If A is 50, and our K is what?
We don't know K yet.
Or, I'm sorry, B. And B is 5. Okay, so this is actually A equals KB in this particular story problem. Different times are going to use maybe cost, and you're going to use a C, and all different kinds of things. But in this one it says A varies directly as B, so this is the equation that shows that they vary directly. Then it says A is 50, B is 5. That gives me a K value of what? Gives me a K of 10. Okay, nothing new there at all. Now it says, what is the value of A when B is 7? So we still have our same problem, but this time we're looking for A. They tell me B is what?
7,
And what do I know K to be?
10,
So what is my A?
17.
And you're done. Okay? Not really too bad. Now let me show you the other way of doing it. This has to do with ratios. When we're dealing with ratios, remember you've got two fractions equal to each other. You've got a line, an equal, a line, and we have a place value for 4 things here. If I give you 3 of them, you can use cross multiplication and find the 4th one, right? Okay, that was how we did ratios. All right, so let's look at the same problem. The formula using the ratio system is, we will write it as A1 over A2 equals B1 over B2. Okay. Not really too hard to remember that formula, but knowing which numbers to put where sometimes can be a little confusing. The 1 represents the first set of numbers that the problem gives you. The 1 will always be the one where I shouldn't say always. The 1 in this problem is the first 2 numbers that they give you. A1 will be the A, A2 will be the B. So if you look back at that problem, if A is 50, when B is 5, what is the value of
7.
A when B is 7? So this is the A that I'm looking for. Okay, notice in the formula, A1 over A2 equals B1 over B2, or the first A and the first B over the second A and the second B. Okay? Now all I do is cross multiply. I get 350 divided by 5 gives me my 70, just like I got on the first one. I don't care which one you use. They both will always give you the same problem. I don't really look at one as being easier than the other. So, just kind of depends on what you want to do. All right, so let's continue on here and look at inverse variation. Inverse variation from, well actually, let's do one more example. I want to make sure you get this. I want you to look on page 332 at example 80.2 and look at this one with me. It says, cost varies directly as the number purchased. So we're going to use C for cost, and we're going to use the letter N for number, the quantity that we bought at that cost. Okay. So if we were to use direct variation, A equals KB, how would we use C and N to write that equation? What would the equation look like using C and N instead of A and B?
C equals K.
C equals Kn. Okay, well let's see what kind of information that they give us here. 12 can be purchased for $78. Okay? So, $78 equals K times 12. All right, let's look at what that asks there. Notice the question. If 12 can be purchased for $78, a lot of times you would think that because I said 12 first, it's going to be first. But 12 is the number, it's not the cost. So that's why it's important to write the equation up there so you can make sure that the cost is first, $78, K times the number. That being the case, you can put, you can divide by 12 and get 6.5 equals your K. So now that you have that K, we can look at how much would 42 cost. So now we're replacing our N with 42. So we're putting 6.5 in for K, and for N we're putting 42 to find out how much it's going to cost for that many. And when you put 42 in there, you end up with $273. So, if it costs $78 for 12, it's going to cost $273 for 42. Okay. If I were to use the other method, the ratio method, help me with this.
78 and 12.
Before we do that, let's write the formula, and then we'll do that. Okay? So, what letters?
Over C2 equals Cn, or N1 over N.
Okay. C1 over C2 equals N1 over N2. Okay. Would it matter, anybody, if these were flipped around, if I had N1 over N2 equals C1 over C2? No, it just doesn't matter at all. Doesn't matter what order they go in. You're going to cross multiply the same numbers. And okay, which brings us to Seth. You said you were giving me some numbers.
Yeah, 78.
So you're putting 78 in here for that, because that was stuff they gave us in the beginning.
And 12 for N1.
Okay, which is the first quantity. Now what?
42 over under 12.
Okay, because that's our B or our N here.
And C2.
Okay, and you're going to cross multiply.
And get the same thing.
You get the same thing. Good. Okay, so when it comes to inverse, exactly the same thing, only we're going to start with A equals KB. Okay, so instead of A equals K times B, it's A equals K divided by B. Okay? So, looking at example 80.3, in fact, we'll look at it twice. We'll do both methods. Blues vary inversely as yellows squared. Okay, so inverse means we're going to use the division. Instead of using A here, let's rewrite this as blues equals K Y for yellow. Okay, so blues are inversely related to yellows. Okay, so what do we know about the yellows? Blues vary inversely as yellows squared. So we're going to do that. It tells us we're going to square yellows, so we square it. If 100 blues go with 2 yellows, how many blues go with 10 yellows? So we're going to have to find our K first. All right, so what do we put in there for blue, or for B? We're going to put 100. And K is what we're looking for, and what are we putting in for Y? 2. And then we square it, because that's what this says to do. Whatever we put in there for yellows, we're going to square it. So we end up with K equals what? 400. Because this is going to be 4, cross multiply, 400 equals K. So K is 400. All right, so now we have our equation, B equals K over Y squared. But we know what our K is. So we can put a 400 there now. And what does it ask for? Oh, it gives us 10 yellows. What are we going to do with 10 yellows?
Put it underneath the 400 square.
Put it underneath there and square it. And that is going to equal our blues, which are what we're looking for. So how many blues do we have when we have 10 yellows? Okay, 400 divided by 100, which is 4, yes. So our B equals 4. Okay, let's look at the other method. Everything is the same, numbers haven't changed, but instead, in the past, what we did is we had A1 over A2 equals B1 over B2. Is that what we had? Okay. When we're dealing with inverse, you take the second fraction and flip it. You take the inverse. So this is direct. The inverse, this stays the same, and this gets flipped. Okay? And then you plug your numbers in. So it's good to write down the formula first, and then you plug your numbers in. So, that being the case, our formula is blues equals yellows. Okay? And in this particular one, we squared our yellows. So, our B1 is what number? Okay, 100. And our B2 is what we're looking for, right? So we'll keep that as our variable. And our Y2 is what? What's the second Y value they give you? 10. And it's squared. And what is my first Y value?
400. Oh, wait.
And that's squared, right? Or did I already square it? Okay, so it's 2 squared. Okay, which is going to be 4. So 100 times 4 is 400. Divided by 10 is 4. So you get the same thing.
Oh, is that
Perfect.
Yeah, so we get 400 equals 100 B2. And that's it.
All right. Yeah.